Namaste, group hug. Please come and join me on the sofa. The live chats, the Citywealth live sessions are about staying sane and staying positive. And today I'm absolutely delighted to welcome one of my favourite lawyers, Alexander Dickinson from Womble Bond Dickinson. Alexander, you've got, I think we were just talking earlier, 28 offices, is that right? So 20 in the US and 8 in the UK. And I think from memory, you were originally, was it from Newcastle originally? Maybe you want to talk us through the history of the firm, just so the viewers are aware of who you are and what's been done.
Yes, well, good morning, everyone.
Morning.
The origins of the firm were in Newcastle. We were called Dickinson Dees. The other part of the firm in the UK was Bond Pierce. We were down in the southwest. But I joined Dickinson Dees nearly 30 years ago, and was a young lawyer there with 5 aging partners in the private client area, and wondering what the succession was going to look like. A bit difficult.
And how old were you then?
I was 27, I think, when I joined.
Sweet.
Maybe 28. Sweet, exactly.
Yeah. But you've had a long history since then, haven't you? We were having a brief chat before, and I was saying, well, Womble Bond Dickinson, I think it was 2 years ago, which was a massive US merger and integration. And then before that, you went to Bond Dickinson. So when in the timeline was Bond Dickinson? And talk me through the numbers of the growth of the amounts of staff.
So Bond Dickinson came to being in 2013. That was a really big move actually for the two businesses, because we were both around about sort of late 40s, early 50s in terms of size. So we were within cigarettes paper of distance between each other in terms of turnover and profitability. So we're very, very similar firms, and so we effectively doubled.
Would that be a boutique size, sort of 40 or 50? Is that the classification then?
Sorry, what I meant there was 40 or 50 is in the ranking tables.
I see.
But our turnover.
So you're mid-size, yeah.
We're mid-size. The turnover of both firms at that time was about 50 million, give or take. So it was a big jump for us when we merged. It was very easy to be combine 2 mid-sized table of firms and continue to be a mid-sized firm in your outlook. From the private wealth side, private client side that I was in, it was a particularly big challenge at the time, because within Dickinson Dees we accounted for about 14% of the firm's turnover, which was quite a large percentage for a private client department within a full service law firm. But Bond Pierce didn't have a private client arm, so suddenly we went from 14% to 7%. But at 7%, you begin to feel a bit vulnerable. Do you justify a position on the board? Do you get the same crack of the whip when it comes to hiring and marketing and bringing in other people from lateral hires from other firms? So it was quite important that we built the business up to a similar proportion as we were in at Dickinson Dees quite quickly. We had a lucky break early on in that we managed to hire a team in Bristol of 2 partners and about 8 members of staff from another firm, and that was absolutely perfect. Took us straight back over the 10% into double figures, and we've worked our way back up to 14% since then.
So I'll come back to that, because I think it's actually quite important at this time. One of the problems that's emerged, isn't it, is bigger firms just dealing actually with their staff day to day, let alone dealing with clients, because staff, of course, got their own problems, haven't they, with potentially partners now working from home and busy jobs and children now all at home and homeschooling. So actually sort of keeping bigger organizations, keeping the lid on the pot, I guess, is actually proving to be an interesting problem in today's world of Zoomies and Microsoft team meetings and Google Hangouts or whatever it is. But let's have a look at the first segment, which is called Until Tomorrow. And this is really just building a picture of who you are and letting people connect with you, letting the viewers understand who you are. So we have 4 pictures. I'll let you say what they're all about. There's one of you in the bath as a baby. We've got also one of you playing cricket, which I'm assuming is a passion, and it's a great picture. And when I looked at it, I was like, that looks like you now, doesn't it? It's so funny that people keep their facial features. And then I think we've got you in a Newcastle strip going to a party and a mudder race. So quickly talk me through those.
Yeah, so the first one is with with one of my cousins, who's a couple of months older than me. He's French. He's a journalist and actor.
And is there flowers in the bath or something?
I think there's a lot of mess from a fun day in the garden, I suspect. Okay. all sorts of stuff. End of a busy day, having a lot of fun together. And we still see each other a bit. He lives in Paris, so it's not as frequently as you would like. We had a lot of fun growing up as children, and because we were close in age, we often had birthdays together. And one year, I think our parents produced a Concorde-shaped birthday cake for us. And I think we were 7, so probably about the time that Concorde was announced between the French and British governments. So it seemed an appropriate sort of thing to do. So that's him. He's still an important part of my life. I worked in Paris for a while, and well, I didn't really work. I was a stagiaire, so I was having a lot of fun, and he was having a lot of fun at the same time. So we had a good time.
So cricket, so you're into cricket and obviously lots of other things, it seems, from those pictures.
Yeah, cricket I love, and I played it as a child. That was a picture in a schoolyard. Technique's not great. I wasn't a great cricketer. I'm not a great cricketer, but I love the game. Very passionate about it. The other 2 pictures you got, despite the fact that I'm in a Newcastle United strip, I'm not actually a Newcastle United fan. But we went to a London Underground themed party, and so we came up with the idea of St James's Park, London Underground station, which of course is the name of Newcastle's Grand.
I didn't know that connection. Right, I get it. Yeah.
So that confused quite a lot of people at the party, but it was good fun. It was good fun dressing up. And then the Mestival, the Mudder Run.
So did you get electrocuted? Because they're quite hard work, aren't they? I mean, I think the last bit is you go into a pit and they electrocute you, don't they?
Well, they didn't electrocute us, but we went through a lot of pits, and there could have been all sorts of things in them, frankly. But I didn't find any electric eels or leeches or anything like that covered on me when I came out. But it was enormous. It was enormous fun. We did them as a family. So my 2 daughters and my wife and I did it. And you can see from that photograph that I'm not the most free-moving individual. It was quite a relief to get to the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, they're very, very hard challenges, aren't they? So well done. So staying sane, this is another hashtag that's going around on Instagram, and it's like being cooped up at home. I mean, we're hearing reports of domestic abuse, refuge, and all this sort of thing. But what are you doing to stay sane? So I'm now, because I've been drinking too much wine, having to do the couch to 5K. So I'm heaving my body around Regent's Park, which I'm sure is not very attractive. But I'm now in week 3. So is there anything you're doing to stay sane and give people sort of any thoughts about how you're coping at home?
Well, I've got all my children at home. I've also got a son who's a bit older, who's 25. So he's a PhD student. So we sit down and we have dinner together, and we have lunch together and dinner together every day, which is important. I mean, lunch could be only 10 minutes grabbing a sandwich, but at least we all chat. The 2 girls are doing online schooling, so it's an opportunity for them to just unwind a little bit. It's an opportunity for me to unwind as well. So that's an important part of it. I love cooking. We all like cooking, actually. So there's usually a bit of competition about who's going to do what, particularly over a weekend. And the youngest likes to bake, and my son likes to do vegan dishes. The bottom of our veg box was a rather big butternut squash, which we turned into a lentil and butternut squash something or other at the weekend, which was delicious.
Oh, very good. Yeah.
So a bit of this and a bit of that, and
Sort of keeping a nice family routine of twice a day chipping in and all having a good chat and just sort of keeping the whole family idea going. That's nice. Yeah.
That's important. It keeps it normal.
Yeah, that's good. And so working from home, so we've all adjusted to like permanent Zoomies, which or whatever you're doing, and it can be a bit exhausting, can't it? A few people I've spoken to said after they've done about 3 Zooms in the morning, they need a siesta and need a little lie down just to cope. But I saw it was a great picture coming up now of you in your office at home, and it looks like it's a long-term setup where you've got everything just how you want it there. So talk me through it.
Yes, so it is pretty much the way I like to set it up, although since this lockdown has happened, there's been a few additions. So a couple of the screens are new additions, and there's a box of tricks that our IT guy in London advised me to get to help me switch around between screens more easily.
Right.
I dug out an old computer that was sitting in sitting in a box disused, and that's quite useful for doing some forms of Zoom conference when I want people to have a sort of a bigger view. It's actually particularly useful when I do my when I do my online Pilates. But that's another story.
That's your staying sane talk.
Yeah.
So have you got any lessons for people? One of the things I'm saying with the WFH situation, I mean, is there anything you've learned that is actually useful that you could tell the viewers about, you know, from how that can work for you properly?
I think it's quite straightforward, really. It's about trying to keep as much routine in your life as you can.
Yeah.
You know, I look at my daughters and I watch them going through their routine of the day, and the schools are very much keeping them to that routine, and that's what we need to do. It's very easy to sit in a chair in an office and think you're working, and think, well, I have the radio on, I better go and get another cup of coffee, I better go and do this. But you wouldn't do that in your office. You wouldn't do that if you were in a meeting with a client. And so just try and do it the same way.
Just sticking to the plan, I guess.
Stick to the plan and switch off at the end of the day. I like to go and play bridge with some friends. I have 4 friends from university, and we used to play bridge every day at university, and now we're playing bridge again together quite regularly.
Nice.
And again, that's just a little routine. It's something different to do, to replace the fact that you were doing something different in your ordinary working life when you were allowed to go to an office or a restaurant or a bar or whatever it might be, cinema, theatre.
So let's move on to something a bit more serious. So this one is the business slot, and this one is not about how you're advising clients. It's more about what do you think of all the government measures, even from business, the bailouts. I mean, I don't know whether you're having to restructure any clients, or what about the current measures that have come into place during COVID, even the reactions to it, all that kind of stuff. What's your view on all of that?
I think as a general rule, given that this was a complete game changer for government, the government have done very well. Yes, they've probably done some things that they would have done differently if they knew what they now know. Yes, there are some areas which we would still like to see improvements in.
So give me what would those be, so that the viewers get a sense of what you're thinking about?
Well, I still think there are concerns over some of the bounce back loans. There's still some confusion over furloughing and who's entitled to what and when they will get paid. But
so what's the confusion? So let's, because I guess people are asking you about this, and as you're one of the top lawyers in the country, I mean, your advice is valuable, isn't it? So what do you think the confusion is? Because it may be like it's a general confusion.
Well, I think most of the confusion comes from the fact that it's a huge scheme which requires an awful lot of IT support. It requires people to help themselves, And there are a lot of businesses out there who are trying to do it. So there's a huge demand. I think I heard on the radio today that 25% of the workforce is now on furlough in some form or another. So that's an enormous hurdle for government to get over, simply to set up a scheme that works, that everybody can access and everybody can understand. And of course, there are plenty of examples in the past of schemes, much smaller schemes, that people have found complex and difficult to understand, but there have been help desks available to help them. Well, it's not so easy to do that at the moment. There is only a limited size to government, and if suddenly you have a scheme that has 20 times as many people applying for it than any previous scheme has got, it's very difficult.
So really, it's just logistical, isn't it? It's logistical, and like how do people do it when it's just a complete, nuclear blast, isn't it? Like none of us really.
Absolutely right. It's a nuclear blast. It's new to everybody.
We're all like, yikes.
But I think people are doing really well. I think there's been an extraordinary amount of community spirit. There's a lot of self-help going on. A lot of people talking to each other in private Zoom conversations or other private forums, as well as the public forums that are going on. There's a lot going on out there, and sometimes it's a bit difficult. Going back to your earlier question about how do you sort of keep your day organised, one of the difficult things is what do you read, what do you listen to?
I agree with you. Yeah.
There's a danger of sort of becoming addicted to the BBC Live news section, which for me is a mistake. I think it's a bit like I don't know, being addicted to sugary drinks or something like that. And you can get too much of it quite easily. So I prefer to listen to podcasts or read longer articles, read the Sunday papers. That's what I prefer to do in terms of getting the information that I want to see.
Yeah, and I think that's wise advice, isn't it? Select your media, because it's just absolutely relentless otherwise, isn't it? And I'm still opposed to death counts. I'm not sure that they have meaning for anyone, and it just keeps people kind of on a hook, doesn't it? Kind of like an adrenaline hook of fear, which I've been in the media all my life, which I struggle with that as a concept, but that's me. So there you go. So moving on to clients, probably we can take some of what you've said there. I mean, what are clients ringing you about? What are they concerned about? What are you thinking about and having to tell them about?
Well, I think the first thing to do was as soon as this lockdown was becoming apparent, was being in touch with people and giving them the opportunity to discuss whatever issues there were going to be there for them. Every client is different, obviously. In my world, I advise a lot of families on strategy, and the strategy you follow will depend upon the type of assets you have and the type of family you are. So we spent quite a lot of time looking at some basics for everybody, which will be around liquidity.
So give us an example. Obviously, no names, but just one example, just to give people a sense of what that might entail.
Well, the first thing you'll be looking at is let's say you're an investment company, or you're a family investment company with a whole range of assets. You're going to look at the people who are working in your business and what you need to do for them. You're going to be looking at your tenants, if you have properties, how is it going to affect them? If you've got borrowings, you're going to be talking to your bankers and other funders. If you've got suppliers, you're going to be talking to them. If you manufacture and supply things, or if you grow things, you're going to be talking to the people that you're selling your assets, or to delivering your assets, your produce. Or whatever it is
just to make sure everything can carry on and continue, and just sort of do a kind of check-in on everyone. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, it's communication. There are so many different aspects to it, and you've got to keep the wheels turning. You can't just. It's very. Believe me, and you'll know this, Karen. It's very hard when a shock like this happens. You can just sort of sit there and feel a bit overwhelmed by the whole experience. But but you can't allow that to happen. And it doesn't matter whether you're a corner shop who's struggling to understand what your duties and responsibilities are to the couple of people who work with you, and whether or not you can deliver supplies to your usual customers, or you're a big business. It doesn't matter whether you're an investment company or a trading business. You've got these issues, I found myself in the first sort of 4 weeks, I suppose, really just in conversations as we talk things through, and we try to understand what was relevant for that particular client, and to come up with a plan.
And so let's move on. I mentioned this before, but I can see there's not really slots for us to talk about it. So let's bring it out now. But so how many staff have you got at Womble Bond Dickinson?
We're about 1,200 staff in the UK.
And then you've got big US operations. So one of the things that came out of the talk with Bart de Koning at Zedra was that actually you've got a massive impact on the staff who are potentially got difficulties with their partners, might have lost their jobs, or they've suddenly got the children at home doing homeschooling for those with younger children. And not all of it is just put the iPad on and play a game or do house party apps for them to talk to their friends. I mean, keeping that steady as one of the bosses is actually a massive feat, isn't it? And so what is Womble Bond Dickinson doing to help that smooth out?
So what we did in my part of the business is that as soon as we told people that we wanted them to work from home, which was about a week before the lockdown, we set up buddy calls within our group of employees. So we account for about 120 people in private wealth out of the 1,200 in the firm as a whole. So the idea with that was to give everybody, whether you were a secretary, a paralegal, a trainee solicitor, a qualified solicitor, a partner, a consultant, whatever it is, the opportunity to talk within a small group of people, a bit like the coffee machine or in the old days, the water cooler. So you had half an hour every day when you could talk, and it wasn't about work, it was just about life and how you were getting on, and what you were doing, and how you were facing challenges, what you were planning to do over a weekend when, ordinarily you might have been going out and about and doing things, and now you're stuck in your flat. You might want to talk through some ideas, talk through your plans, or get some ideas from colleagues about what you can do. Talk about what to do about the children, the elderly parents, how you can help in your community, and so forth and so on. Learn from each other. So it's about that communication, learning from each other. We had everybody at home and geared up to work pretty much immediately, and that was very important. So we all began this process together, and we try and talk to each other, keep ourselves going, it's amazing what comes out of it. I've got one colleague whose girlfriend is in fact, he's in my buddy group. His girlfriend is a product designer for a cheese company. So we spent a bit of time discussing the type of cheeses that she is producing that might be on our shelves in a year's time. It's silly stuff, but it's nice to talk about. And
it's giving people an option, yeah.
It gives them a wider community. It makes them realise that outside their bedroom window there is still a world out there that is interested in them and with whom they can talk and discuss things.
And I think, someone wise said to me a little while ago, be careful what you say to people, because you don't really know what's going on in their head and what their fears are. And I think this is part of it, isn't it? That we're all not completely 100% of how people are feeling day to day, what their sort of fearometer is, and the problem with all the news media and things like that and death counts is it can be quite alarming, can't it, for people, and especially if you see perhaps people dying in the neighbourhood, or it's a very tricky time, isn't it, to understand how people actually are.
Yes, that's right. I think it is very difficult, and I think my job, well, in fact, not just my job, all of our jobs in the business is to help each other, and we're all there for each other. I could be as affected by something as anybody else. So I rely on the support of my colleagues as much as I hope they rely on the support of me.
That sounds great. I really like that idea. So let's move on to your creative side. So a bit of a change of tone there. But I see bread making, and you had a head chef. So talk me through that, what that's all about.
Yeah, the bread making was something we did with a few colleagues in London. Probably about a year ago now, and we had a lot of fun doing it one evening, eating too much bread, throwing all the bread up in the air and twisting it around and kneading it, whatever. It was good fun, but it actually goes to the heart of something that is very important in me, and I mentioned it earlier, which is cooking. And the head chef little slate mat that you can see is something that was given to me by a member of my family. They know I love cooking. It's one of those things that it helps me switch off, because I'm not a good enough cook to be able to cook and do other things at the same time. So I have to really concentrate on what I'm doing, and that means I switch off from other things.
Which is very important, isn't it? I think as a lawyer, and I find myself running a business, that actually I can get very, very into a fog with work, and people talk to me and I can't hear them. And actually I go on an art course every year, and I actually have to like move away from that and think about something different entirely for a week. So I think baking obviously gives that to you.
Yes, exactly. And whether it's baking or souffle making or
fancy
anything you like. I love it, and I love poring over the weekend newspapers and seeing something that looks interesting and wondering how to make it. And of course nowadays we get a weekly veg box delivered, so there are all sorts of things that appear at the bottom of it, and usually by the end of the week there are a few things that you haven't a clue what to do with. So that's quite fun.
So I have a thing that I take everyone to the Rosewood Hotel to have pies, obviously before COVID. And so that's one I recommend for you. They hand make every day these amazing pies, and they've got a video on their website. But I took Rosalind Breedy there, who's at Red Lake Bell, and I said, oh, come on. I said, most women just want to eat a salad, but are you up for a pie? And she was like, oh, yes. And she'd been doing the Great British Bake Off, and she'd been trying to make a pie for about 2 years. And she said, oh, my God, there's so much skill involved. It's a pleasure to eat a pie. And I was like, oh, my God, I know. Fantastic. So let's move on. So you've got some lovely pictures, location, which is trees. So I couldn't tell, is that a park, or is it your garden? Or?
So I live in a rural part of Northumberland. So there's a picture of some trees with beautiful white blossom on coming down a hill, and that's the hill that I drive down to get to my home. Of course, I'm not driving down it at the moment. I'm just walking near it. But it's been a fabulous spring. There's been some amazing blossom, and in fact, actually, I was talking to somebody today. And we were reflecting on the fact that this year we've had the opportunity, both of us work in cities, and this year we've had the opportunity to see spring really develop in our homes in a way that we never normally do.
It's a lovely thought,
I've been out taking photographs every morning so that I can build up a picture of what this lockdown period looked like to remind me in the future.
Yeah, that's really nice. And for post-COVID, what's going to happen when we all get back to normal? Is this the new normal? Who knows? But we also had a quick picture of a bobsleigh. So I've done this as well. I did this in Calgary. I went down the bobsleigh, and you have to do it in under 60 seconds or something, don't you? It was quite an adrenaline rush. So quickly talk me through that, and then let's skip on to how do you see the world post-COVID, if there is a post-COVID, I don't know.
Yeah, so I love traveling, and I love trying anything. And a few years ago, in fact, quite a few years ago, I started traveling out to Switzerland to do what you see in that photograph, which is the Cresta Run. I'm not the greatest rider of the Cresta, but it's fun to do.
It looks very scary.
Yeah, well, you have to go head first, and it's pretty fast at times. And you can come out as long as your technique's all right. You land in some hay bales and you're fine. I've never injured myself, although I know plenty of people who have injured themselves, but they're probably more reckless.
But you're quite tall, aren't you? So even though you're quite tall, you manage not to injure yourself.
Just not as reckless as others.
Okay. So post-COVID, I'm boring everyone now because I've said it a few times, but my mindset is a bit like, if there's actually an official date, which I'm not sure anyone thinks there is anymore, it's a bit of an L curve, isn't it? If you can call an L a curve, which just means it's going to take us a long time to have little things lifted month by month, year by year, who knows? But I'm of the mind that you go out and get a bit crazy for a couple of days and we all kind of have learned some lessons, and so maybe we adjust how we live. But other people think that this could go on for a really long time. So I mean, how do you see our world evolving, I think, in the next 2 years, I suppose?
Well, it's certainly difficult to envisage it going back to the way it was, but equally, the human being is a social animal. I think that's something that quite a lot of people say. And I think it will be difficult for us to operate for long in a form of lockdown where we can't socialise. Obviously, health will greatly affect how we behave, and indeed how our governments encourage us to behave. Perhaps we will have to wait until there is a proper vaccine out there that we know that will defend us against this disease. I think clearly there will be significant changes in the way a lot of things happen, and it's probably too early to try and guess what all of those are. I for one, you saw a photograph earlier, I'm well set up to work from home, but I like to see people, I like to meet people, I like to discuss things with people, and it's difficult to do that sitting in your desk at home. At least, on a long-term basis, it's difficult to do that.
Yeah, I think that's a social interaction is becoming very apparent, isn't it? That it's something, or for me as well. I mean, perhaps I'm a different type of person to everyone, but it's something that's becoming very missed for me. But are there any, just finishing off, are there any sort of burning bits of advice at the top of your head? I mean, I think we've discussed one, which is mine as someone from the media my whole life, which I'm very concerned about what people are putting into their heads through potentially fake news, or even the BBC's gone a bit crazy with death counts and things. Although I know that they do some good reporting as well. But is there anything that has been at the top of your mind as a lawyer that think would be useful just to impart that to people looking at the screen now?
Well, I think the important thing is we are in a strange period now. Make the most of it. Don't sit there being unhappy about the way your life is, whatever that is, whether it's heaps and heaps of Zoom meetings and fighting fires in every corner, or more constructive or boring because you've been furloughed and you're sitting at home wondering what the future holds. Try and make the most of this. Try and think what you can do, and there's so much that people are doing. And a few weeks ago, somebody said to me that the key interview question that will be asked in a few months or years' time will be, what did you do?
What did you do? Yeah.
And I think, ask yourself that question now, and ask yourself, is my answer good enough?
Yeah, or even have a response, like actually, because I ran a business, so sometimes I think life is a little too much goal setting. And so for me, I had to not set goals a couple of years ago because I drive myself too hard, and to even recognize that as a mindset and to say that is a good answer, isn't it? To say, actually, I took it to have a chance to decompress, to chill out, to zen myself is actually a good answer, as well as I learned a new course, or learn a language, or engage with my children more, which is one of the things you're saying, isn't it? actually having a lot more family time, which is
absolutely
wonderful, isn't it?
Well, it is. I even played a piano duet with my son 2 nights ago, and I don't think I've played the piano for 25 years.
Well done. Anyway, I want to say thank you so much, Alexander. You are truly one of my favourite lawyers in the whole industry. Always such a pleasure to talk to, and such a even temperament. It must be a pleasure that you have so many staff you can look up to and learn from this moment and this difficult time. So I look forward to seeing you post-COVID, and hopefully at happier times that we can actually run one of our Citywealth events, but who knows right now. So I'd like to say thank you for being a good sport and sharing pictures. And to the viewers, if I could ask you, if you enjoyed this conversation, if you could click the thumbs up for us and press subscribe. We are doing these TV live chats on Tuesdays and Fridays at 11 o'clock, and they're with industry professionals, leaders. Sometimes they're with the Tomorrow Club, sometimes they're with our Power Women, just to give us a broad look at all the people we've got within our network to have a chat with. So Alexander, thank you, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you, Karen. I look forward to it.